There are stories that whisper to us, and there are stories that howl. The Call of the Wild is one of those howls, sharp, cold, echoing through more than a century of human memory. At the dawn of the 20th century, a young man named Jack London, sailor, factory worker, adventurer, and self-taught intellectual, wrote this short novel after returning from the Klondike Gold Rush. It was 1903, and he was only 27. Within months, London went from a struggling journalist to an international literary phenomenon. The book sold hundreds of thousands of copies, was translated into dozens of languages, and became the cornerstone of his fame, alongside later works like White Fang and Martin Eden. Though it didn't receive the formal literary prizes we now associate with prestige, its success was its own award. London became the highest-paid American writer of his time, a voice both popular and prophetic. He captured, with startling simplicity, the violent poetry of survival and the mystery of instinct. In one unforgettable line, he writes, "He was mastered by the sheer surging of life, the tidal wave of being, the perfect joy of each separate muscle, joint, and sinew in that it was everything that was not death." That sentence alone feels alive, like breath crystallizing in Arctic air. So today, on Echoes of Book, we're diving into The Call of the Wild, a tale about a dog who becomes more than a dog, about a man who dreamed of nature's truth, and about what happens when the civilized heart remembers the forest. If this kind of journey speaks to you, if you love exploring stories where philosophy meets adventure, where literature meets the pulse of life, then please take a second to like this video, subscribe to Echoes of Book, and maybe support us with a small donation so we can keep bringing these worlds to light. Because sometimes, all it takes is one story, one call, to remind us what's still untamed inside. Imagine golden California sunlight falling through fruit trees, a garden filled with laughter, and a powerful dog who has never known hunger or fear. That's where The Call of the Wild begins, with Buck, part Saint Bernard, part Scotch Shepherd, living like royalty on Judge Miller's estate in Santa Clara Valley. He is large, handsome, confident, the kind of animal who belongs to no one and everyone at once. But in 1897, during the Klondike Gold Rush, even paradise isn't safe from greed. A servant in Judge Miller's house, desperate for money, steals Buck and sells him to traders shipping dogs north. One moment, Buck is bathing in sunshine. The next, he is chained in a crate, hearing the sound of the sea for the first time, smelling salt, rope, and fear. When he finally reaches the north, he meets the man in the red sweater, a nameless figure who beats him with a club until Buck learns the brutal lesson London calls the law of club and fang. It's the law of power, of submission, of the wild. And for the first time, Buck realizes that fairness doesn't exist. There is only strength and endurance. From there, the world becomes a blur of snow, whips, and howling sled dogs. Buck is sold to Francois and Perrault, French-Canadian mail couriers toughened by the trail. Unlike his earlier tormentors, these men are strict but fair. They see Buck's intelligence, the way he learns to pull a sled, to eat quickly before the others steal his food, to sleep buried in the snow to survive the cold. Here, Buck begins to rise, not through kindness, but through cunning. He studies the other dogs, most notably Spitz, the lean, white-furred lead dog who rules by cruelty. Their rivalry simmers quietly, day after day, until one moonlit night it explodes into a primal duel, London writes. When the long trail stretched behind them and the frost was white on their muzzles, the time came that Buck met Spitz, and they fought to the death. The fight is savage, and beautiful, and inevitable. Buck wins, not because he is stronger, but because he is smarter, because he has learned to listen to something ancient in his blood. He becomes Lead Dog, and under his command, the sled team becomes legendary. Even men speak his name with awe, but the North is merciless. When Francois and Perrault are reassigned, Buck falls into the hands of less capable owners. The next trio, Hal, Charles, and Mercedes, are city dreamers who see the wilderness as a holiday rather than a law. They overload their sled, fight constantly, and starve the dogs. London describes them with bitter irony, their ignorance shining brighter than the snow. By the time they reach John Thornton's camp, they are broken. Thornton warns them to stop. The ice ahead is too thin. They ignore him. Buck refuses to move. It is an act of rebellion, an act of instinct. In that moment, Thornton cuts him free, saving his life. Minutes later, the ice collapses, swallowing the rest. Thornton becomes Buck's final master, or perhaps the last man he loves. He treats Buck not as property, but as a companion. He talks to him, laughs with him, trusts him. Their bond is tender, almost spiritual. For the first time since leaving California, Buck feels not fear, but joy. Yet even in this warmth, something calls from the forest, the howl of wolves, the scent of pine, the pulse of his ancestors. He begins to wander deeper into the woods, chasing that call. London describes his dreams of a hairy man crouched by the fire, a prehistoric echo stirring in his memory. Buck hunts alone, runs with wild wolves, then returns to Thornton's camp out of loyalty. But one day he comes back to find devastation. The camp is burned, Thornton and his partners killed by a group of Yeehaw hunters. Something inside Buck breaks and hardens. He kills in a frenzy, swift and unstoppable, then disappears into the forest forever. The legend of the ghost dog begins. The creature who runs with the wolves, larger and stronger than the rest, who sometimes visits the place where Thornton died, standing silent in remembrance. The story ends not with peace, but with transformation. Buck has become the call itself, no longer torn between two worlds, but the bridge between them. London's closing words linger, and when the long winter nights come on and the wolves follow their meat by the light of the full moon, it is said that they sing a song of the younger world, which is the song of the pack. The structure of transformation, from pet to myth. If you strip away the snow and the dog sleds, the Call of the Wild is really the oldest story in the world, the story of transformation. It's not the transformation of a man into a hero, but of a creature into legend. Jack London structures the novel like a reverse pilgrimage. Instead of rising from savagery into civilization, Buck journeys backward, shedding the comforts of his human world to rediscover a purer, wilder self. The rhythm of the novel follows that descent, or perhaps ascension. Each new owner marks a stage in Buck's metamorphosis. Judge Miller's sunny California represents innocence, a kind of Eden. The man in the red sweater is the fall from grace. Violence enters the world, and Buck learns the first rule of survival: obey the club or die beneath it. Francois and Perrault are the wilderness tutors. They bring discipline and purpose. Hal, Charles, and Mercedes embody the chaos and folly of human arrogance. Finally, John Thornton stands as both redemption and farewell, the last thread connecting Buck to humanity. When Thornton dies, the tether snaps, and the transformation is complete. London's structure is deceptively simple, linear, episodic, but beneath that simplicity lies a deep emotional logic. Each episode is like a shedding of fur. The pacing slows when Buck learns, then quickens when he acts. London's prose mimics breath, heartbeat, pulse. You can feel it in the rhythm, short, muscular sentences that race like a sled over ice. He writes, "The blood longing became stronger than ever before." He was mastered by the call that sounded imperiously, deep in the forest. That call is not just a sound, it's the organizing principle of the book. Every event bends toward it. Every loss clears the way for it. The story's spine is instinct awakening. In this sense, Buck's journey isn't only about survival, it's about memory. The structure mirrors evolution running in reverse. London plays with the idea that time is a spiral, that the past lives in us, waiting for the right shock to awaken it. When Buck dreams of the hairy man, crouched by a primeval fire, we see the novel folding in on itself, past and present collapsing, dog and man becoming reflections of each other. This circular pattern, beginning in domestication, ending in wildness, also gives the story its mythic resonance. By the final chapter, Buck is no longer an individual character. He has become an archetype, a symbol of life before culture. The narrative's clean structure allows that transformation to feel both inevitable and sacred. It's also what keeps the novel timeless. Readers don't just watch Buck evolve, they feel themselves drawn into the same pull. The arc from obedience to freedom is written so instinctively that it triggers something primal in us. The story whispers, "You, too, could break your leash." What makes London's structure remarkable is how modern it still feels. Without flashbacks or fancy tricks, he creates a rhythm that feels cinematic, each scene dissolving into the next like frames in motion. It's a blueprint for countless transformation stories that followed, from human survival dramas to contemporary films about reclaiming identity. By the end, Buck is not returning to something lost. He is becoming something eternal. The structure tells us that wildness isn't the opposite of civilization. It's the foundation beneath it, always there, waiting to be remembered. Nature's brutality and beauty, the law of club and fang. There's a peculiar kind of beauty and brutality when Jack London writes about it. In The Call of the Wild, nature is not simply a setting, it's an authority, a code older than morality itself. Every page of the novel breathes this dual truth that life is both magnificent and merciless. London calls it the law of club and fang. The phrase sounds almost biblical, but it's more elemental than that. It's the first law written in pain. When Buck is beaten by the man in the red sweater, he doesn't just learn obedience. He learns the rules of existence stripped of sentiment. The club represents the human world, dominance by force, hierarchy by pain. The fang, which he learns among the sled dogs, is nature's counterpart, the instinct to survive at any cost. Together, these twin symbols become the moral axis of the story. London doesn't romanticize this world, he respects it. His descriptions of violence are clear-eyed, even tender in their precision. When the dogs fight, he writes not with pity but with rhythm, as though describing a storm. The fight was fierce and swift and unexpected, and Buck stood over Spitz, the dominant note in the song of the pack. The language sings because it is truthful. In this frozen arena, justice and cruelty are the same thing. They both serve life's continuity. What fascinates is how London's nature rejects human pity, yet reveals a deeper kind of order. The weak perish, the strong adapt, but there's no malice in it. It's simply the way the earth keeps balance. Francois and Perrault understand this law. They work with it, never against it. Hal, Charles, and Mercedes, on the other hand, are crushed by it precisely because they try to impose their own illusions, comfort, arrogance, and denial onto a land that answers only to endurance. London's genius is that he doesn't separate beauty from cruelty. The same snow that blinds and freezes is also described as the great silence that seemed to listen. The same wilderness that kills also gives Buck meaning. In its indifference, nature becomes strangely spiritual. It strips away false gentleness, leaving only what is essential. For Buck, every beating, every frostbite, and every fight is a kind of purification. He grows not harder but truer. Each wound erases a layer of civilization, bringing him closer to the pulse of the earth. By the time he kills Spitz, Buck is not evil, he is natural. And that distinction is the heart of London's philosophy. Behind the physical struggle lies a question about morality itself. Are human ethics a luxury of warmth and full stomachs? Or are they an illusion that melts under the first real cold? London seems to suggest that beneath every civilized gesture is an animal memory, and when life depends on it, that memory reclaims us. This is why the law of club and fang feels so unsettling to modern readers. It exposes how thin our moral skin really is, yet it also reawakens awe, the knowledge that survival, in its rawest form, is still sacred. Buck doesn't become less noble in the wild, he becomes more alive. The brutality isn't senseless, it's the rhythm of existence, terrible and beautiful at once. Jack London's worldview between socialism and survivalism. To understand The Call of the Wild, we need to see Jack London not just as a novelist, but as a bundle of contradictions wearing a fur coat. He was a socialist who worshipped strength, a man who wrote about equality but admired dominance, a self-taught worker who became the richest writer in America before the age of 30. Those contradictions shape every line of this book. London grew up poor, working in factories and on ships before discovering the power of words. He had seen exploitation firsthand. To him, capitalism was just another wilderness, a place where the weak were devoured by the strong. And in many ways, The Call of the Wild is his social philosophy disguised as an adventure story. Buck, sold into labor, beaten into submission, and driven to exhaustion, is the perfect symbol of the working class, a creature of power and dignity trapped inside a brutal system. The men who own him are not villains in the moral sense. They are symptoms of a larger machine, turning survival into profit. But London's socialism was never gentle. He didn't believe in equality through softness. He believed in equality through strength and competence. That's why the book praises Francois and Perrault, hard-working men who respect nature's limits, and condemns Hal, Charles, and Mercedes, who represent the ignorance of privilege. They are the tourists of empire, trying to buy mastery without earning it. In London's eyes, that kind of arrogance is the true corruption of civilization. When Buck becomes lead dog, he isn't rewarded for obedience but for clarity, for understanding the laws that actually matter. This is London's vision of the just society, not ruled by pity or pretense, but by natural order and skill. It's the same ethos that runs through London's political essays, where he insists that labor deserves respect only when it is strong enough to demand it. In his universe, compassion without discipline is useless. Yet there's a deeper irony. As Buck grows stronger, he moves away from humanity altogether. The very philosophy that empowers him, the belief in struggle as purification, also erases the human world. By the end, Buck has no interest in justice or reform. He belongs to the wilderness. London, the socialist, accidentally writes a story that celebrates individual transcendence rather than collective progress. Some critics have called this a betrayal of his ideals, but maybe it's more honest than that. London was fascinated by the tension between community and solitude, between the crowd and the lone wolf. He saw society as both a comfort and a cage. The Call of the Wild is his confession, his way of saying that while he fought for a fairer world, he secretly longed for one beyond rules altogether. And that's why the novel still feels alive. It's not propaganda, it's an argument with itself. In Buck, London found his own divided spirit, the worker who dreams of freedom, the revolutionary who envies the beast. When Buck runs into the forest, he's not abandoning morality, he's escaping the hypocrisy of civilization. And perhaps that's what Jack London wanted too, not to destroy the human world, but to wash it clean in snow, to start again from the raw truth of survival. Instinct, memory, and the dream of the hairy man. There's a strange tenderness in the way Jack London writes about instinct. It isn't just an animal reflex for him, it's a kind of memory, an inheritance written in muscle and bone. When Buck starts dreaming of the hairy man crouching by the fire, we enter the most mysterious part of the Call of the Wild, the bridge between the present and the prehistoric, between the dog and the first human. London's hairy man scene has puzzled readers for decades. On the surface, it's a simple vision, Buck lying by John Thornton's campfire, his mind drifting thousands of years back to the dawn of time. But what it really shows is London's fascination with what he called atavism, the reawakening of ancestral instincts buried deep within us. Buck isn't just learning how to survive, he's remembering how to exist. The Wild isn't teaching him something new, it's reminding him of what he already knows. This dream folds time like paper. The firelight in Thornton's camp becomes the same firelight that once flickered across the faces of early humans. It's as if London is saying that evolution isn't a straight line forward but a circle, and that somewhere in every civilized creature, The Ancient One is still breathing. When London describes Buck's body responding before thought, his muscles tightening at a distant howl, his nose twitching at the scent of the hunt, he's giving us a philosophy of instinct. He believes that reason, for all its brilliance, is a thin crust over something deeper and truer. It's an idea that anticipates modern psychology, especially the theories of Freud and Jung, who would later speak of the unconscious and the archetypal past. Buck's call is the voice of that collective memory, a primal echo that civilization can muffle but never silence. The hairy man is also London's metaphor for freedom. In that vision, Buck doesn't see power or progress. He sees simplicity, a life without ownership, without masters, without the clutter of modern ambition. It's not regression, it's clarity. The dream reminds him, and us, that the wild isn't the opposite of intelligence. It's another kind of wisdom. John Thornton represents the last human tether to warmth, love, and companionship. But the dream shows Buck that even love can't outvoice the call. There's something deeper than affection, something older than loyalty. The wilderness speaks in a language that predates words, and Buck understands it without translation. When London writes, he sat by John Thornton's fire, a broad-breasted dog, white-fanged and long-furred, but behind him were the shadows of all manner of wild beasts, half-glimpsed, lurking and lurking. That line vibrates like an ancestral drum. It's about the ghosts that follow us, the ones we don't even know we carry. In a way, the hairy man is not just Buck's ancestor. He's ours. London is whispering to every reader, the wilderness isn't out there in the snow, it's inside us, pacing patiently, waiting for a moment of silence to be heard. So when Buck finally answers the call, it's not rebellion, it's return. His transformation isn't about becoming an animal, it's about becoming whole. Language, power, and perspective. When we talk about Jack London, we often talk about his adventures, his ideology, his love of the wild. But the call of the wild survives not just because of what it says, it survives because of how it says it. London's language has the weight of muscle and the rhythm of a heartbeat. It's language that breathes. From the very first page, the narration walks a careful tightrope. It's not quite human, not quite animal. The story is told through Buck's eyes, but with a human intelligence guiding the vision. That's what makes the book so hypnotic, the way it pulls us into an in-between state of consciousness. We are not reading about a dog. We are reading as if we were one, sensing, smelling, noticing the tilt of wind and the vibration of danger in the ground. This is language as empathy. London invites us to abandon the luxury of human distance and to inhabit a world ruled by instinct. His sentences shorten as Buck's awareness sharpens. Verbs replace adjectives. Movement replaces thought. It's a slow linguistic metamorphosis, mirroring Buck's own. By the time he fully joins the wilderness, the narration has shed its ornament the same way Buck sheds his leash. But this gift of voice comes with power, and London knows it. The narrator isn't neutral. Language itself becomes the tool that mediates dominance, both in the story and outside of it. The law of club and fang is not just physical, it's linguistic. The club is command, the fang is instinct. Human words create laws and hierarchies, while the animal world answers only to sound, pulse, and silence. London's prose oscillates between these realms, reminding us that language is both liberation and cage. When he describes the wilderness, his diction shifts from harsh monosyllables to rolling, almost musical phrases. The aurora borealis flamed coldly overhead, the stars leaping and dancing, and the land lying still and white and frozen. You can feel the reverence in that rhythm. London's syntax turns nature into a cathedral. Yet when he writes of human folly, of Hal, Charles, and Mercedes shouting and stumbling, his language becomes clumsy, almost mocking. He uses tone to create moral gravity. Power, in this book, doesn't come from who speaks, but from how they speak. It's worth noticing that the novel was written in 1903, in an age obsessed with mastery over nature, over labor, over other races and species. But London's use of language subtly undermines that mastery. By giving Buck a consciousness that rivals, even surpasses, that of humans, he destabilizes the hierarchy his own society relied upon. The reader begins to question who is truly intelligent, the dog who adapts or the men who perish under their own arrogance. At the same time, we can feel London's ambivalence. His narrative empathy doesn't erase the colonial gaze that shaped it. The voice that glorifies Buck's freedom also silences the indigenous people of the North, reducing them to symbols of danger. In that sense, London's control of voice is both genius and flaw, a reminder that even the most vivid storytelling can carry the limits of its time. Still, when Ember's voice speaks this story aloud, the music of London's prose survives its contradictions. It's lyrical yet primal, poetic yet brutal. It doesn't explain, it evokes. It doesn't plead, it commands. And in that command lies its enduring power. By the final chapters, when Buck stands alone in the forest, the narration itself feels transformed. It has lost the language of ownership and found the language of awe. We are left not with words, but with rhythm, the sound of paws on snow, the ancient drumbeat of existence. That's what makes the Call of the Wild timeless. Its power isn't just in its ideas, but in its pulse. London writes as though every sentence were carved into ice, knowing that language, like life, can be both fragile and eternal. Reception, legacy, and the taming of the wild. When The Call of the Wild first appeared in 1903, it caused something close to a literary stampede. Readers devoured it in weeks. Critics argued about it for years. And Jack London suddenly found himself transformed from a struggling writer into a mythmaker. Newspapers called him the Kipling of the North, but he was more than that. He was giving America a new frontier, not of geography, but of instinct. Early readers saw the novel as a thrilling adventure, a survival story set against the icy purity of the Yukon. But beneath the excitement, something deeper was happening. Buck's story struck a nerve because it mirrored a collective anxiety at the turn of the century. Industrial cities were rising, machines were replacing muscle, and people were wondering whether progress had cost them their souls. Buck's escape into the wilderness became the fantasy of every reader trapped behind factory walls or office desks. It was the dream of shedding civilization's weight and hearing something older and purer in the wind. As the decades passed, interpretations multiplied. In the mid-20th century, scholars began reading the novel through the lens of naturalism, as a study in environmental determinism. where instinct and survival define morality. Others saw it as social allegory, a parable about the exploitation of labor. To them, Buck's story was the worker's story, bought, beaten, disciplined, and finally emancipated. But as cultural awareness evolved, new debates emerged. Feminist critics pointed out how London's wilderness is a world of masculine proving, where empathy and domesticity are dismissed as weakness. Post-colonial readings noticed the silence surrounding Indigenous life in the North, turning the novel's landscape into an empty stage for white heroism. These perspectives complicate the book's legacy, and they should. A work that endures for more than a century will always reveal both the brilliance and the blindness of its time. In recent years, readers online, from Reddit threads to TikTok book corners, have rediscovered The Call of the Wild with a mix of awe and discomfort. Some praise its visceral honesty, calling it a masterpiece of human empathy written through non-human eyes. Others find it troubling, too violent, too enamored with dominance. On Twitter and book forums, readers argue over whether Buck's journey is a triumph of freedom or a descent into savagery. And that argument is exactly what keeps the story alive. Adaptations have only sharpened the debate. The early film versions, like William Wellman's 1935 classic, emphasized grit and danger. Later ones, such as the 2020 adaptation starring Harrison Ford, softened the edges, replacing the raw brutality with sentiment and digital polish. Audiences were divided. Some loved the compassion. Others mourned the loss of realism. It's as if each generation feels the need to tame the story a little, to sand away its sharpness until it feels safe again. But safety, as Jack London knew, is the opposite of the wild. What's fascinating is how The Call of the Wild keeps reflecting our era's fears. In London's time, it was about the machine age consuming the natural man. In ours, it's about technology consuming the natural mind. We no longer pull sleds across frozen rivers, but we run the same races for success, validation, survival. The wild now isn't a place. It's a state of being we keep losing and searching for again. So the story keeps changing with us. Some read it as ecological prophecy, some as a psychological mirror, some as a dream of rewilding the soul. And perhaps that's its greatest legacy, not the wolf dog or the snow, but the question it leaves behind. What does it mean to be truly alive when the world around us is built to domesticate everything, even desire? Because every few decades, in some form, film, classroom, audiobook, meme, The Call of the Wild returns. It howls again, testing our nerves, reminding us that we haven't yet outgrown the need to listen. The echo of the call. When the last page turns and the howl fades into silence, what remains is not a story about a dog, or even a story about survival. It's a story about awakening, about the fragile, miraculous moment when a creature remembers who it was before the world told it what to be. That's the pulse running beneath The Call of the Wild. Jack London wasn't writing a fairy tale. He was writing a mirror, one polished by snow and blood. In Buck's journey, he captured something universal, the tension between comfort and freedom, belonging and instinct, love and the hunger to run. Every reader who has ever felt trapped by schedules, by roles, by the quiet suffocation of the civilized world, can hear that same whisper London heard in the Yukon wind. When Buck stands on the ridge at the end of the novel, looking down at the world he has left behind, it isn't victory or loss that fills the air, it's understanding. He has learned that freedom is not peace. It is risk. It is solitude. But it is also truth. And that truth, once tasted, is impossible to forget. London closes the novel with an image that still feels like a heartbeat. The wolves gather under the full moon and sing the song of the younger world. Somewhere in that song, Buck's voice can still be heard, a reminder that civilization and wilderness are not enemies but echoes of each other. More than a century later, that echo hasn't dimmed. It hums beneath the noise of modern life. Maybe it's there when you turn off your phone and hear only your own breathing. Maybe it's there when you feel the pull to walk alone, to be unmeasured for a while. Maybe it's there when you realize that the wild isn't a place to escape to, but a part of yourself waiting to be remembered. And that's why the call of the wild endures. It doesn't just tell us a story, it dares us to listen. So let me leave you with a question. If the wild were to call you today, not the forest, not the snow, but the part of you that refuses to be tamed, would you answer? If you felt something stir while hearing this story, consider liking this video, subscribing to Echoes of Book, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what your wild is, that quiet space where you still feel untamed.